Have you ever been called too emotional just because you tear up easily? Or maybe you're the person who never cries, and people think you're cold or unfeeling. Here's the truth. Crying easily has nothing to do with being weak or strong. It's not about being overdramatic or emotionally mature. It's about how your brain is wired. And today you're going to understand exactly why some brains produce tears easily while others don't. 4 types of criers. Pure psychology. No judgment. Let's get into it. See, we grow up thinking that crying is something you should control. That if you cry easily, something's wrong with you. That you need to toughen up. But that's not how it works. Your tear response isn't random. It's built. Some people's brains are literally wired to produce tears more easily than others. And it has nothing to do with emotional strength. It's brain chemistry. Nervous system sensitivity. How your body learned to regulate stress. So before we label anyone as too emotional or too tough, we need to understand that there are different types of criers. And each type has a completely valid psychological reason for why tears come easily. 4 types. And you're probably going to recognize yourself in one of them. Type 1. The emotional absorber. These are people who don't just observe emotions, they feel them. If someone around them is sad, they feel sad. If someone's in pain, they absorb that pain. They cry at movies not because the story is unrealistic, but because they genuinely feel what the characters are feeling. Psychologists call this high empathy or emotional contagion. Their mirror neurons, the parts of the brain responsible for understanding others' emotions, are incredibly active. So when they see someone hurting, their brain doesn't just recognize it, it mirrors it. They literally feel it in their own body. And here's what people don't understand. These people aren't crying because they're weak or because they're seeking attention. They're crying because their brain is doing exactly what it's designed to do, process emotions. The only difference is their brain processes other people's emotions as intensely as their own. So when an emotional absorber tears up at a sad commercial or cries when their friend talks about a hard day, it's not performative. Their brain just doesn't have a strong filter between their emotions and someone else's. And that's not a flaw. That's actually deep emotional intelligence. The next time someone calls you too sensitive for crying at something that didn't even happen to you, just remember, your mirror neurons work perfectly. Maybe there's need an upgrade. Type 2, the stress releaser. These people don't cry because they're sad. They cry because they're overwhelmed. You know when you've had a brutal week, everything's piling up, and then one tiny thing happens, something small like dropping your keys, and suddenly you're crying? That's a stress releaser. And here's the science. Tears aren't just water. Emotional tears, the ones you cry when you're stressed or upset, actually contain stress hormones like cortisol. When you cry, you're literally releasing those hormones from your body. It's your body's built-in pressure valve. When the internal pressure gets too high, tears are the release mechanism. So stress releasers cry easily not because they're emotionally fragile. They cry because their body has learned that crying is an effective way to regulate. It's actually a healthy coping mechanism. The problem is society has taught us that crying means you're falling apart. But for stress releasers, crying is what keeps them from falling apart. And here's what people miss. A stress releaser might cry over something that seems completely insignificant, like spilling coffee or missing a bus. But it's not about the coffee. It's about the week of accumulated stress finally finding an exit. So if you're a stress releaser, your tears aren't a sign of weakness. They're your body trying to take care of you before you hit burnout. Quick question before we keep going. Which one are you so far? Are you the emotional absorber who feels everyone's pain like it's your own? Or are you the stress releaser who cries when life gets overwhelming? Keep that in mind as we look at the next 2 types. Type 3, the deep feeler. These people experience emotions with an intensity most people don't. Beauty makes them cry. Injustice makes them cry. Meaningful moments, even happy ones, bring tears. They don't cry because they're sad. They cry because they feel things deeply. Psychologists call this trait high sensitivity, or being a highly sensitive person, HSP for short. It's not a disorder. It's a personality trait. About 15 to 20% of people have it. And what it means is their nervous system processes stimuli more thoroughly. They notice subtleties others miss. They reflect on things more deeply. And they feel emotions more intensely. So when a deep feeler cries at a beautiful sunset or tears up during a heartfelt conversation, they're not being dramatic. Their brain is processing that moment with more depth, more meaning, more emotional weight than the average person's brain does. For them, emotions aren't just feelings. They're full-body experiences. And society constantly misunderstands this. Deep feelers get labeled as overly emotional, too intense, exhausting to be around. But the reality is they're experiencing the full spectrum of what it means to be human. They feel the highs higher and the lows lower. And while that can be exhausting, it also means they experience beauty, connection, and meaning in ways other people completely miss. They're not crying because they can't handle life. They're crying because they're actually living it at full volume. And then there's type 4, the neurologically wired crier. These people cry easily not because of personality, not because of empathy, not because of stress. They cry easily because their brain and tear duct connection is just stronger. Pure biology. Some people have a more sensitive lacrimal system. That's the system that produces tears. Their tear ducts respond more quickly to emotional signals from the brain. So even a mild emotional trigger, something that barely registers for most people, can produce tears. It's not that they're feeling more emotion. It's that their body's physical response to emotion is more immediate. And here's what's interesting. Research shows that people with certain brain structures, particularly a more reactive amygdala, that's the part of the brain that processes emotions, are more likely to cry easily. Their brain sends stronger signals to their tear ducts. It's neurological wiring, not emotional weakness. So if you're someone who tears up at things that don't even seem that emotional, and you catch yourself thinking, why am I crying right now, this is probably you. Your brain isn't overreacting. Your emotions aren't out of control. Your tear ducts are just more responsive. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just how your system is built. Now let's destroy some myths because there's a lot of garbage information out there about crying. Myth 1. Crying easily means you're emotionally unstable. Wrong. Research actually shows that people who cry regularly tend to have better long-term emotional health. Because they're processing emotions in real time instead of storing them up like emotional garbage that eventually explodes. Myth 2. Real strength means not crying. Also wrong. Strength isn't about shutting down your emotions. Strength is feeling something painful and letting yourself actually experience it instead of numbing out or pretending it doesn't exist. That takes way more courage. Myth 3. People who cry easily are just being manipulative. Look, sometimes crying is used manipulatively, sure. But most of the time, people who cry easily aren't trying to manipulate anyone. They're just having a human physiological response they can't fully control. Assuming someone's tears are fake or strategic, that says more about you than it does about them. And here's the thing nobody talks about. Not crying doesn't make you stronger or more emotionally mature. It just means your body processes emotions differently. That's it. There's no moral superiority either way. We need to stop treating tears like they're a character flaw. So here's what I want you to take away from this. If you cry easily, you're not broken. You're not too much. You're just wired a certain way. Maybe you're an emotional absorber whose mirror neurons are working overtime. Maybe you're a stress releaser whose body knows how to let go of pressure. Maybe you're a deep feeler who experiences life in full color. Or maybe you're just neurologically built to tear up more easily than other people. Whatever the reason, your tears are valid. They're not a flaw in your design. They're part of how you process the world. And look, I get it. Society has this weird thing where crying is seen as losing control. Like you're supposed to keep it together at all times, stay composed, stay strong. But here's what I think. The people who cry easily aren't the ones who've lost control. They're the ones who are still human enough to let themselves feel something real in a world that's constantly telling us to be numb, to be productive, to move on. So yeah, cry if you need to. Or don't. But stop judging yourself either way. Drop in the comments, do you cry easily? And if you do, which type do you think you are? I'm genuinely curious because I think a lot of you are going to see yourselves in one of these. If this helped you understand yourself or someone you care about a little better, hit that subscribe button. We explore the depths of human psychology here at the Thinking Brain. Real insights, no judgment, just understanding. And I'll see you in the next one.